welcome everyone. We are so excited that you're here for Core 90 training. It's Wednesday, October 2nd. So we are officially in quarter four, right? In quarter four. So we got to start thinking about our next year, right? What I know is amazing top producers are always thinking about the future. And that's something we're going to learn about today from one of the best coaches in the industry. I'm super excited. One of my personal coaches and mentors. And I know a lot of you know John as well. And it's going to be a really, really great session. So can't wait to get started. And just a whole bunch of awesome things happening right now in the industry. Hopefully you guys are feeling the effects, right? We saw a little bit of loosening in the interest rates. We see some stuff going to happen. And no matter which way it goes, by the way, on elections, just getting past an election is going to help us to relax a little bit as a country and kind of get into our next round of reality here. And so this is going to be an awesome upcoming season, and I can't wait. Somebody's saying my audio is in and out, so I apologize in advance if my audio is going. But with no further ado, I'm going to bring up my brother from another mother, John Sellers, awesome coach and top producing real estate agent, investor extraordinaire. This guy is incredible. He's done it all. And John's going to help us think about how do top producers and experts in business really plan ahead. And John, this is something that you've thought about a lot.
Yeah, this is something that I've screwed up a lot. So one of the things,
Perfect.
guys, as we get going, I'm really honored to be here. And, I've thought a lot about this and spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. And certainly what I'm going to be talking about, guys, isn't exhaustive. It doesn't cover everything, right? I've put together what I think we can get done in an hour and a half. Maybe we'll do it faster. It depends. But what I want you to know, I'm bringing this to you humbly because nobody has this nailed in perfection and that it takes time. And realize that for most of you, I'm a lot older than you. So that means I've had a lot of time to mess this up, to try and figure things out. And it's a continuous journey through figuring out business, figuring out our personal lives and our business lives and our health, all those pieces that come together. But the sooner we start doing that and putting those pieces together, the more opportunity we have to excel and to create the life of our dreams. And that's really, as you see me coming back and talking about this, what my hope is out of this is that each of you will grab one or two things that you'll say, wow, I can grab onto this and this could start changing things for me. And that we create hope. And, I'll say those without hope are lost. And sometimes we can get into this middle of a downturn in a market, we get ourselves in a funk, and then we start letting ourselves go down a rabbit hole. And pretty soon we can't see the light. And I've been there before. I can tell you that it was only 15 years ago that I was pretty much out of my mind for a couple of years, that I'd been a guy that had success, lost a lot of money, and could barely get out of bed. So while some of you may be feeling I'm in a tough place, I can tell you most people have been in a tough place. I've been there. I know where you're coming from, but I know that there's possibility on the outside of it. So let's go ahead and dig in if everybody's ready. And let's rock and roll, Jeff. Let's see if I can actually make this technology work. All right. So the key, guys, really is let's set perspective. What is your perspective on your business? What is your perspective on yourself? And I want to share a little story with you that I heard the other day. And my wife knew that I was doing this presentation. And she said, John, you really got to share this. And she shared it with me. And so I'm going to share it with you. So listen closely on this. So this girl went to college and didn't contact her parents for a very long time. Eventually, she felt really bad about not reaching out. So she decided to write a letter to explain why she hadn't been in touch. This is what she wrote. Dear Mom and Dad, since I left for college, I've been remiss in writing. I'm sorry for my thoughtlessness and not having written before. I'll bring you up to date. Before I do so, can you please sit down? It is very important that you sit down before you read on. I'm getting along pretty well now. The skull fracture and the concussion that I got when I jumped out of my dormitory window after a cop fired shortly after my arrival have pretty well healed. I only get those sick headaches a couple times a day. I keep going here. Hang on. Sorry for my. Fortunately, an attendant at the gas station witnessed the fire in my dormitory and my jump. He ran over, took me to the hospital, and continued to visit me there. When I got out of the hospital, I had nowhere to live because of the burnout conditions in my room. So he was kind enough to invite me to share his basement apartment with him. It's sort of small, but very cute. He is a very fine boy, and we have fallen deeply in love. We are planning to get married. We haven't yet set the exact date yet, but it will be before my pregnancy begins to show. Yes, mom and dad, I am pregnant. I know how much you are looking forward to being grandparents, and I know you'll welcome the baby and give it the same tender care and devotion that you gave me when I was a child. The reason for this delay in our marriage is that my boyfriend has an infection, which I carelessly caught from him. I know, however, that you will be welcome into our family with open arms. He is very kind, and although not well educated, he is ambitious. Even though he is of a different race and religion than ours, I know you will have often expressed tolerance and will not permit you to be bothered by that. In conclusion, now that I've brought you up to date, I want to tell you there is no dormitory fire. I did not have a concussion or a skull fracture. I was not in the hospital. I am not pregnant. I do not have any infection, and there's no boyfriend in my life. So the question, guys, is you saw where we're going. So what's the perspective change? The idea was, hey, if she told them all these terrible things up front, then, oh, excuse me, I missed the last part. No, I'm not very good. Now you see perspective is not very important. She said, however, I failed all of my exams, and I want you to see these results in proper perspective. Okay, so the reality is she failed all of her exams. That's it. Now, how would it have been if she'd called her parents and just said, I failed all my exams? They would have been very upset with her, right? But now that she's told them all these other things, when she says she just fails her exams, do you think they're going to be as hard on her? Or did you just feel this sense of relief? Like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? So I want to talk about that in our perspective. What is your perspective and on what you've achieved and not achieved? How hard are you being on yourself? Because one of the things that's challenges for most of us is not forgiving ourselves. And when we don't forgive ourselves, it's very hard to move forward. The other is oftentimes we have an inaccurate assessment of how good we're doing or how good we're not doing. Some of us think we're doing a lot better than we really are. And some of us are doing a lot better than we really think we are. So how do we be objective about that perspective? Because really our perspective influences how we look about what we're going to accomplish down the road. It looks about how motivated we can be and how much we believe in ourselves. So think about that perspective. And as we get going here, I'd like you to think about forgiving yourself. You know, it's about writing a line in the sand and saying, this is it. The past is past. Where am I going to move forward? So let's go here. I'm trying. Jeffrey, I'm like struggling here. There we go. All right. So let's talk about vision. A clear vision serves as a guiding star for success. It sets the direction for personal and professional goals. Defining what you truly want to achieve is essential for creating a roadmap for your desired future. One of the things I found is most agents aren't real clear about their vision. I just want to do a deal. And when we just want to do a deal, things just don't work quite right. So what is your vision? So those without a vision are lost. Do you have a vision for where you want to be in business? 1, 3, 5, 10 years from now? What is your vision for 2025? Do you base it on, so let's talk about business. We're going to talk about personal life as well, but let's talk about business here in the beginning. And that's what we're going to talk about. And then we'll talk to some life mastery skills. But how many transactions do you plan on doing next year? And how do you figure that out based upon what you need to make? You know, I found that most agents, when I ask them, and if I was to pick somebody out of this group and I'd say, okay, how many transactions do you think you need to do next year? And I can tell you there was a top producer friend of mine, this was only about a year ago, and she's brilliantly smart. Okay. And I said, well, how much do you want to make next year? She says, well, I want to make $1 million too. I said, well, how many transactions is that going to take? And she said, 125. I said, okay, well, what's your average gross commission? She didn't know exactly, but she said, oh, I think about 15,000. Now, Jeff, can you do the math? What's 125 times 15,000?
1.875.
1.8. So her business goals did not match up with her transaction side. So Jeff, if we take it back and do 1.25 divided by 15,000, how many transactions is that?
83.3, so 84.
So is that a different business strategy and goals? Is it a totally different business to do 125 transactions than 80 transactions?
Massively.
So how could she begin to build a business that's accurate and that uses her resources properly if she doesn't even know how to do that? So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest you base it, what you want to make, on what it takes you monthly to live. Because, most people, what I found is agents just set a number out, but they don't really know what their expenses are. They don't really know what it costs them to live. They haven't really done a personal budget. So I'm going to say, have you developed a budget of how much it costs you to live? Have you developed a budget that says, okay, I want to save X amount of money every month? I want to build a reserve. And I'm going to tell you right now, for financial management, your first goal for everybody should be to build a 6-month reserve. You should not rest until you have a 6-month reserve of business and personal expenses, because we're looking to create margin in your life. And what margin is that, think about that. When we have a little space in our life, can we make better decisions? What would be happening today if you said, oh, you had a bad month, but you've got 6 months reserves? Can you make better long-term decisions when you have flexibility?
100%.
I would say so. So I'm going to work this out for you guys on a little calculator. I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to just give you, let me just see if I can go to the next, I'm going to go to the next slide here. So what is your average commission? So understanding I'm going to say your gross commission is accurately calculating the potential income. I'm not going to go through this, but what the next is on this is, let's just see here. So what is your gross commission you earned before splits and fees? Does everybody know that number? I want to see a raise of hands if you know what your average gross commission been accurately over the last 25 transactions. How many people can raise their hand and know that off the top of their head? I'm not seeing any hands.
I saw Scott threw his hand up.
Awesome. That should be something every single person should know here, or you don't really understand your business. And guys, what I'm hoping for each of you, and my vision, is that you become a pro. So there's a book out called Go Pro, right? And this idea is, are you an amateur or are you a pro? You're a business person that owns a business that has the potential to be life-changing in this industry. But if you don't have the basic principles and you don't understand it, how can you calculate your dreams and goals? So here's what I'd like you to do. When we get off this thing, if you want to figure out your vision, is what is your gross commission? All you have to do is go back to the EXP, look at it, and they'll tell you what your gross was. And that's before they took anything out. Okay. And I'd love you to go back at least 9 months, but ideally go back to the beginning of 2023. And if you do that, you're going to be able to say, okay, and we're just going to do some basic numbers on this. The other is, I would suggest that every time you close a transaction, you have a spreadsheet that you fill out. You put down the client's name, their address, you put down what your gross commission is. You put down where that transaction came from. And we're going to get into that a little more. So without precise knowledge of your average gross commission per transaction, setting realistic financial goals becomes nearly impossible. And that's what I find most people are doing. They're operating without clarity. And the beauty about having no clarity is that you get to be a victim. And you can blame it on other people. You can blame it on the market. However, not having clarity is really a way to not be able to create your dreams. And we want to create accountability for ourselves. Then we start being somewhat in control. So I'm going to stop sharing this one, Jeff, and I'm going to move to this spreadsheet. Let's see if I can do that.
Well, and John, while you're moving over, one of the things that I see here or even feel listening to this is just this idea of planning and understanding your reality. There's a lot of responsibility and accountability that shows up when you understand this. Oh, this is awesome. Look at this.
So yeah, I mean, again, if we don't have a clear vision, how are we going to get there? So the idea is, how many of you guys go on a hike, if you're going to go between, I mean, I know most of us, if I'm driving between here and, New Mexico, I'm going to get a map out. I'm going to chart it today, and I'm going to know what streets I'm going to go on. I don't just start driving. Now, sometimes it's fun just to go driving, and you just go and you just figure out your way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, you got to understand if that's what you're doing. If you're doing that in business, you're going to usually be sorely disappointed. But if you're just out for a Sunday drive, it's fantastic. Jill and I did that last week. We went out for a hike, and then we just started driving around. She goes, "Are we lost?" I'm like, "I don't think so. I think we just have to go a little more east there." And we found some other roads, and we got back home. But I would never do that in business. Do you want to just be wandering through the wilderness for 40 years to be a sign of Moses there, biblically? So let's talk about the income calculator. Can we see that, Jeff?
Yes.
So let's say that you want to do, you can work this backwards a couple different ways. But what I'm going to want you to figure out is, what do you need to make per month to meet your goals? So not what your gross revenue is. We don't start with that. We start with, what do you want to make? So I'm going to do an idea here that you want to make $10,000 after taxes and after expenses. Okay? Now we're going to make some assumptions, and these assumptions are something you can figure out by looking at your tax returns. So I'm going to make the assumption that your expenses are 35%. For some people, that's high. For some people, that's low. All you have to do is look at your 2022 tax returns, and you can see what was your gross revenue, and go back to EXP, look at it. What was because remember, when you get your your 1099 from EXP, they've already taken out some of the expenses. And that's what your bookkeeper or CPA works off of. So you're going to want to go back and see what your gross expenses were with EXP, subtract those out, and then subtract out the expenses you have. So let's just say it's 35%. And let's say you're at a 35% tax bracket. That includes state and federal. Some of you may be higher, some of you may be lower. Again, you can look at that on your taxes. I just got my taxes done, so for 2023, I had lots of extensions, and I can calculate that. So let's look at this. Who would have thought this? So if we do 20 transactions at $10,000 in commission a deal, you can decide, you can put in what your real number is. For most people, that might be a low number for people in Portland. That might be a little high number for somebody in Roseburg. But when you come up with that number, I mean, that's pretty accurate for here in Southern Oregon. That's actually a little low. If your average deal is 450 at 2.5, which is typically where we're at, it's going to be about that number. So look at this, minus 35% expenses takes us down to 130. If we have 35% in taxes, it's only $7,000 a month after. Who would have thought that on $200,000 in commissions, you'd have at least 10 grand a month to live on? I would have. Put it in the comments, Jeff. See if anybody, would anybody have thought that would have been $10,000 a month if you had 200 grand in gross commissions? I'm not going to look at comments. So,
John, I think it's an easy assumption to make, that would land there, because it feels like that is plenty of headroom, right?
Right. And what happens with most people in real estate, they end up thinking that they're making more money than they are. And
Right.
then what happens is they get to the end of the year and they go, why wasn't I able to save money the way I wanted to? It's so hard. Well, because they didn't have a realistic understanding of what they need to do. So the choice is, if you want to have more income coming in, you either got to figure out how to make more money. You got to figure out how to cut your personal expenses. You know, you can try and figure out how to cut expenses. You can figure out, understand taxes, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's figure out how many transactions we'd have to do to get to 10,000 a month. So let's change this number. So how do you increase your income? There's three ways, really. There's one to do more transactions, right? There's one is to cut your expenses. And number three is to increase the commission per transaction. So now we moved up to 12.5. That one didn't work right. Um, did I mess it up, Jeff? Oh yeah, it can't have it be 125,000. That would be a great transaction size.
You're working ultra luxury.
So now we've got to do, and we're still not at 10 grand a month. So now let's change this number. Let's change this to 24. Wow. So for you that are thinking, I want $10,000 a month after taxes, if I do 2 deals a month and my average sales price is 450 and my expenses are there, I'm going to make a little more than $10,000 a month. And I don't know how many people we have on this call. I can't see it, but I'm sure we've got 30, 40, 50 people. And I would bet that maybe 25% have done this every year to figure out what they want to do. How many people do this every year to figure out where they want to be? Yeah. This is about going pro, guys. And this is not that hard. But you can see when you understand these numbers, you're going to be clear about what you need to do. You're going to be clear about what resources you need to allocate. So I'm going to go away from this and we're going to do something different here. We're going to go back to that screen. Let me see if I can get there.
Well, and John, I love this idea that being professional means that you're like planning your financial future in advance, and then your execution is just working the plan, right? It's not, you're not moving all around and just reacting all the time.
Right. We're actually moving, it's about working backwards. But
Totally.
we can't work backwards if we don't really understand the true numbers. We're working off of inaccurate information. And when we're working off inaccurate, so this idea, that idea that says, don't assume. What happens when you assume? It makes an ass of you and me, right? And that's typically what happens when we make assumptions about. I mean, there's certain things we have to make projections, and we have to make some assumptions of how things are going to go. But the problem is, do we have the wrong data that we're working off in the beginning to actually create that? So we saw this. If you put this in, you're going to have a clear idea of where you need to be. So income goals after expenses and taxes, right? We've got 35%. I'd encourage you to go back and look at your tax returns. See what your real expenses are. You might find that they're less. Was that going to change your business goals? Maybe. What if your taxes are lower, like my taxes? Because I have a lot of real estate. I understand tax structure. I paid 7% federal last year in taxes, and I paid 0 in state because there were some refunds in Oregon. So I wouldn't have to use these numbers. I could put in a lot less. Now, what's the beauty is if you understand taxes, you can live at a much higher number than somebody. So the joke is, with what I make and what I'm paying in taxes, it's actually, I'm almost like living 50% higher than what my income tax show, what my tax return shows. Wouldn't you like to be able to do less deals and live better? Or if you're doing more deals, you're going to be able to save more money. So if anybody wants that spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. I'd be happy to share it. Just email me or send it. It's really simple to build. So the next thing to understand as a business is, what are the source of your transactions? So I want to know when I get through every transaction, where did that come from? So what would we be looking at for the source of your transactions? Does anybody know exactly what percentage of where their transactions came from? If you did 20 deals in 2020, and I'm just using this 20 number because it's easy, but if you did 20 deals in 2023, do you know how many of them came from past clients? Do you know how many of them came from referrals? Now, I'm going to tell you that's important to break those two out. They are not the same. Right, Joanne? We've talked about this. Okay. Are they coming from internet leads? Are they coming from FISBOs? Are they coming from sign calls? Again, if we don't have clarity on where our business is coming from, I've seen people that say, well, I'm going to quit buying leads. I'm going to quit Zillow. And I'll say, well, how many transactions did you do from Zillow? I did 15 deals from Zillow. I said, okay, well, how many total deals did you do? Well, I did 25. Oh, so you're just going to stop. Well, I'm paying too much for them. I said, well, how much did you pay for them? I don't really know the total. Okay. Then we break it down and they average 3,000 a transaction to Zillow and their average commission was 12.5. That means they're only paying 30% for those leads. If they stop doing that, what are they going to do to create that and make the difference? So they didn't have the understanding of how to really make accurate business decisions. So where do transactions come from? Past clients, referral. So I want to make sure you guys break those out differently. Past clients are pretty easy. People do not like to go to a different real estate agent if you somewhat kept in touch with them. You don't even have to do a good job in terms of keeping in time, but most of the time they want to work with people they remember. Referral is somebody that they referred or somebody else referred. Sign calls, pretty straightforward. Internet leads. What type of internet leads? So if you have different types of internet leads, you're going to want to break those out. Open houses, agent referral. So an agent referral is very different than a referral from your database or your sphere of influence. FISBO, expired, networking. Now I like networking, and I want to make sure we get clarity. Networking referrals are different if it's organized like a BNI. That's not the same type of referral. Door knocking, farming. There's lots of other ways we can do this, but I just wanted to break that out. And those are some of the ideas. So I want to analyze your business a little bit. Building goals, where to spend your time and resources. So I'm making an assumption. You've been in the business 5 to 7 years and closed 20 deals last year. So why do I say it's important to have 5 to 7 years in the business when I'm doing this assumption? Can anybody put their mic on and tell me why I might think that's why I'm saying that? Somebody.
Is it to base it on consistency, John?
Well, it's
Because,
basically to make sure that we have enough past clients.
yeah, you're going to have past clients and you're going to have friends who know you're in the business and all that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that may be somebody 3 years if they've got enough, but we're really looking at here somebody that's got 50 to 100 past clients. Okay. So let's look at agent one. Past clients 7, referrals 5, open houses 4, sign call 1, agent referral 2, internet 1. Agent 2, past clients 15, 1 referral, 4 open houses. Agent 3, past clients 2, referrals 2, sign call 1, internet 12. So what's the potential upside, downside, and opportunity for each example? How can we project what each agent should be spending more time on and or resources? So I guess my question would be is, which business do you think is the best business overall in terms of efficiency of time, efficiency of resources, and efficiency of actually being able to grow in the future? Anybody got a guess?
I would guess number 1.
Why is that, Joanne?
Well, I like number 2 because obviously they're keeping track of their past clients and they have a great re-engagement with their past clients. That's awesome. I like agent 1 because they're more diversified. I mean, you've got to have referrals from people that aren't past clients Agent 2 doesn't have that. Agent 2 looks like me. That's why he's putting that in there. Just put my name on top of that. Although I don't do open houses. I don't have a lot of good, like the people that I know are not referring me. Why is that? I need to let them know that I'm still in the business and I want, their friends and family I want to help them, right? They just think, oh, she's fine. She's got all the business she needs. That's not true. Anyway, number one, isn't relying too much on, doesn't look like too much on paying for leads, but they've got a great sphere of influence with past clients, friends that are sending their friends and family, and then they get out there to open houses to meet people. I don't know. I just like number one for that reason.
Well, and Joanne, you are number 2. Okay, you're in my mind. In my mind, you are number 2. Okay, just so when I built number 2, it was you. Just so you know. Okay. So, because I know that about you, right? We've shared that. I'm not saying that's the number of deals you did or anything like that, but I know that's your percentages typically. None of these are wrong. Okay, first of you to know, none of these are wrong. What we want to talk about is what's the upside and maybe where people are missing opportunity. So let's talk about the first one. I like the first one because I believe that they're probably more efficient with their time. It's still not, they're probably going to work more than agent number 2. And they're going to be spending a little more money to build their business. But what I like about it is, one is they're getting referrals from their friends in their sphere. Where's the opportunity with number 1? They still are not working their database as well as they could. They could be getting more past clients. Okay. But so where might they want to spend some of their money? Where might they want to spend some of their time? What are they doing with their past clients? What agent number 2? They think they're really good in there. They'll most of the time say they're working by referral. They're really not. They're working by past client. So I would tell you in agent number 2, typically they're not taking care of their database as well as they should. They're not really reaching out to them enough. They're not asking for help enough. They're not spending their money on their past clients to encourage them to refer to them. Or sometimes, as Joanne said, they think they're too busy. They're showing all their time out because this person, number 2, is going to have the most free time. And if they think that they're out there playing golf all the time rather than working, there's a point where you don't want to post all your fun stuff because eventually people will stop referring to you. Now, number 3, I love number 3. Why do I love number 3? They know how to create business from nowhere. They have the ability to scale. But the problem with number 3 is it costs a lot of money, typically. Not saying always, but typically. The other is it takes a lot of time. They're having to be on the phone. They're having to be on the computer. Now, again, they may not be doing that work. They might have VAs and all that doing that, but that costs money. So is they're going to have a lower net income. But what do they have the opportunity on? They have the opportunity, if they can continue to get 12 deals from the internet a year, and they started leaning into their database and started spending money on their database, they have the actual ability to blow up much bigger than the first 2. Because the first 2 haven't really proven that they know how to scale their business. Now, that may not be their goal. But agent number 3 probably has a goal of growing a much bigger business. And they think they're just going to grow it up by doing cold leads. They will grow their business up much faster if they start working with their past clients and referrals and spending money in that area and be able to make that work. So what I want to show you guys is that none of these businesses are wrong. These are all nice little businesses. Think about that. 20 deals, if the average deal was 12.5, that's a 250,000, what is that? 20 deals times 12, that's a 12.5 business, or 250 business roughly. If your expenses are, 35%, it's 150, that's a $10,000 a month business. And if you can't live on $10,000 a month after taxes, it's a personal problem. You got to figure that out. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's a lot or a little, but I know a lot of people live in a lot less than that. I learned how to get wealthy on $150,000 a year because of some of the other resources of understanding to do. So when we understand this, guys, we can start looking at our projections. Now we start looking at our budgets. Wow, where is my time being spent? Where is my money being spent? And this is what we're talking about going pro. And some of you may say, oh, just give me a quick widget to do 20 more deals. Well, I got to tell you, there's no quick widget to do 20 more deals most of the time. But it's little incremental changes. It's keeping researching to figure out other opportunities. Maybe it's for agent one, if they want to really grow their business, they need to figure out how to get internet leads to grow faster. It's very hard to grow super fast by referral only and past clients. So if any of these people, if the first agents want to go to 35 or 40 deals, they're going to have to figure out how to get some sort of prospecting into their business at a higher level, or some sort of internet lead gen or something to grow that faster. Agent number 3, man, they could grow to 35, 40 deals pretty fast by just starting to work their database better, getting more referrals. So you see how I said not one's better than the other, just understanding what you need to do as a business person.
John, this is a really powerful slide, man. I love that all 3 of these agents are doing 20 deals. I mean, the basic outcome is like, if you ask 3 producers, just in general, how many deals did you do last year? I said 20, 20, 20. You'd assume all 3 of them have the same business, but that is a categorically false assumption. And there's different realities in the future for all 3 of these agents based on what they're doing right now.
And what I've found, Jeff, overall, people that are good at generating prospecting are not very good at taking care of past clients and referrals.
Right.
And people that are really good at referrals are not really good at the other side. And they've kind of determined that in their own minds. And it's a limiting belief. It's a limiting belief. I believe the best agents have the ability to do both, because they understand that the faster I can learn to scale prospecting wise than the other, and then if I take care of my clients at a super high level, because the goal would be to get to 40 or 35 or 40 deals a year, and all of them are referral or past clients. And you're automatically going to get some signed calls. You're going to get a few things that come along the way, but those are bonus. But you cannot count on that many referrals until you've got enough people in your database. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the people that are taking these internet leads. So when I built my business, when I built it the 3rd time in Oregon, I knew nobody when I started. I started in 2012. That was not a good market, right? It was rough. And I say the transaction sides were about the same amount as today. The difference was all the listing side was going to the REO guys. So there were actually 50%, like 3% of the agent. So there were actually 50% less transactions or even is today. You guys understand that? So people are saying it's rough today because we're about the same transaction as 2012, but it's still doubly better than what it was for 97% of the agents. If you were one of those REO people, and that's why we did short sales and tried to figure some other things out. But what I was getting at is I started with Boomtown. And Boomtown, we were on the phone 3 hours a day. I had to make a living, man. I was broke. I had 3 kids in private schools. I'd start over. There was no choice. But one of the things when people came in, I had a buyer presentation that shared with them. It's like, while I'm building this through internet and what I'm doing today, my goal is to create enough clients that I can, and when I get a client, I'm going to treat you as if you were referred to me. Is that what you'd like me to treat you like, or would you like me to treat you like an internet lead? And they'd say, well, I want you to treat me referral. I said, well, that's what we're going to do today. But for me treating you like a referral, then my goal is that you're going to be willing to refer people to me. Would you be okay doing that as I do a great job for you? And then we went through a whole exercise of what is it, Jeff? The frontal cortex. What's the, tell me, Joanne, you know it. The reticular activator.
RAS.
We went through the RAS, like, hey guys, I know a lot of people think they don't want referrals until they don't ask for referrals till they've done the deal. Here's what I've found. If I wait until after the transaction's closed for you to refer me, you're already done to the next deal. It's kind of like, and I give a story, right? Whatever that is. You know, hey, Krista, do you have children, Krista? Krista, do you have children? Okay. So do you remember when you were pregnant? Okay. Did you notice there was pregnant people everywhere once you got pregnant? Right? But once you weren't pregnant anymore, you didn't notice all the pregnant people. Now what you notice is everybody with little babies. Am I right? Same time when you get a new car, all of a sudden you notice everyone with that car. But if you get a different car, now you don't notice that other car. So the idea is what I shared with that client. I actually walked that through with them and said, here's what happens. So I'm going to ask you to be referring me during the process because I know actually when it's done, you're going to be on to the next thing. Does that make sense? And I would say that to him. And that's a tie down, guys. Does that make sense, Krista? So if I'm doing a good job, because what's going to happen right now, Krista, is you're going to be going to the grocery store and you're going to be hearing people talking about real estate, just like you saw everybody when you were pregnant. And I'm going to be updating you every week as we go into escrow. And I'm just going to be asking you at that point, hey, did you meet anyone that you could refer me to? Is that okay if I ask you that? Because I'm going to bust my butt to make sure this process is awesome for you. Would you be willing to do that, Krista? Yeah, and I'm shaking my head like this. Yeah? And guess what? I got a lot of referrals from people that their deal hadn't closed yet. They were referring me people that first week. How many does it take to change your business? So let's move off this. So how to keep more of your hard-earned money. So what is the greatest miracle to growing your money, guys?
Compound
interest. You guys know what compound interest is? Have you ever heard that story? Would you rather have $1 million? And you've heard this a million times and you've heard a lot of the things that I'm saying a million times. But the truth is we need to hear it a million times because we keep forgetting it. So would you rather have $1 million or a penny doubled every day for 30 days?
Penny doubled.
Right. So how much is a penny doubled every day for 30 days?
Lots of $1 million.
5.3 something million dollars. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't think about taxes. Agents don't think about it. I'm just going to go out and make a lot of money. But taxes is the #1 killer of money creation. It's the opposite of compound interest. So now, what would you rather have? $1 million or a penny doubled every day, but 35% capital gains is taken off each turn. So what that means is instead of getting $1, instead of it being $2 the next day, it's 35% less. Which would you rather have, $1 million or the 35% off? You better take $1 million. Because when it's doubled every time, it's like $20,000 to $40,000. Can you imagine that? That's the difference when we don't understand taxes. So again, we're talking about going pro to understanding business. What would it be like if you didn't have to work as hard to make the same amount of money? So let's get into this. So let's talk about structuring your business. And I've talked about this in the past, and I still find most people haven't done it. So if you're making $80,000 to $100,000 in gross commission, somewhere in that number, and I'm not a tax accountant, but I'm just giving you my opinion and what's worked. You should be creating an LLC. If you haven't done it and you're making more than 100 grand and you've been in this business, especially if you've been with me for over 5 years and you haven't done it, shame on you. Because it costs you a lot of money. So you want to choose an S election. So you're not getting taxed a different way. You pay yourself a salary. I recommend if you're married, you have your spouse become an officer. They own part of that LLC. I typically split everything with my wife, but then she becomes an officer. I even pay her a small salary. Because all my money's hers anyway, so it's just all in the paperwork anyway, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But just so you understand, we pool all of our money. That's 35 years coming up this next in a couple weeks. So actually, the 12th of this month will be 33 years. And we've always just, my money's her money's my money. We pool that together. But so what happens when you pay yourself? So if you guys have ever looked at this and you made $100,000 and you didn't have a corporation, you didn't pay yourself a salary, you paid a self-employment tax of 13% on top of your federal taxes. Isn't that crazy? So versus if you made $100,000 after expenses and you paid yourself a salary of 30 grand, 35,000, you're not going to pay 13% on $66,000. So now let me give you an example of how this lays out. And this is a real life example. So I have a guy that I know that we both were making similar amounts. Actually, he was making more than me at the time. But back in 2012, his taxable income was about $200,000. Okay? But he didn't have an S corp election. And he just didn't. I'm just out selling real estate. That stuff's stupid. I don't have time to think about that. And this is what usually people say. I don't have time to think about that. I don't have time to think about that. I'm too busy. Well, slow down. Wouldn't you rather slow down a little bit? I love this saying, slow down to speed up. Slow down to speed up. So let's give you this example. He made $200,000 that year. He didn't pay, so he paid $26,000 in self-employment tax. If he'd done it properly, he probably would have paid about $6,000 or $7,000. So this example, let's just say he would have paid $6,000 in self-employment tax. Now, in 2012, the average rental property in Medford, you could buy a great property for $100,000. So he didn't, because he didn't have the money. So guess what happens? So he doesn't buy a property. So ask me today, how much would that $100,000 property be worth? Because that would have been 20% down, you guys. So how much would that $100,000 property be worth today in, we got a lot of Southern Oregon people, Portland, wherever. How much most likely would it be worth today?
300-400.
Yeah, 350 to 400. And how much income would you, and at that point, if he borrowed at 100 in 2012, even if he had a 6% interest rate at that point, which is about what they were, he would have refinanced it down to 3% somewhere along the way, let alone what the tax benefits he would have gotten. So the idea is he would have had a net worth now on that property alone of an extra $300,000, let alone what has been paid down. All by understanding taxes, not by selling more houses. Did you hear what I said? He doesn't have to sell more houses. He has to understand business. And part of business is taxes and what you take home. So today, I think if he'd done that for 3 years in a row, 3 years in a row, what if you only made 100 grand, but you saved 10 grand a year? That would have been over 5 years. That would have been 2 properties or 3 properties, because properties are still pretty affordable through 2015. Then you say, well, that doesn't work today. It still works. It just takes a little different time. So if you could buy one property over the next 3 years, 4 years, and buy another one the next 3 years, most of us need to be having a 15-year time span. Sometimes we get lucky to move it faster. But what would that do? Are you looking at it that way? Because think about that. If this gentleman had bought one a year for 4 years, his net worth today would be easily over $1 million. He didn't have to work any harder. He didn't have to spend more money. He didn't have to take it. This was not taking money out of his personal life. This was just creating money. I hope everybody makes your mind think. You may say this is complex, but it's not. We've been talking about this for quite a few years now. Where could that do? The idea again is, what if it was only $5,000 a year? The last couple of years, you get 5% interest easily. If you'd been saving $5,000 a year for the last 5 years, that's an extra 30 grand plus interest. That's probably 35,000. Is that 3 months reserves? It's 90 days. And we say I didn't make enough money. Well, you didn't even have to make more money. You just had to make better business decisions. And guys, what I'm trying to share with you is I'm not brilliant by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm sharing with you is I learned this from somebody 25 years ago. And then I started applying it. And then I started understanding compounding. So let's jump on to the next here. So the next is really, are you understanding your business? Are you identifying deductible expenses? Now, one of the things when you do the LLC, guys, you're gonna have a separate tax return. So that's why I say if you're not making 50 grand, probably not worth it yet, afterwards. But as you start getting more, and my goal is you're all gonna be making 100 plus. So the idea is that, are you understanding what your write-offs are? Do you have separate bank accounts for your business? I find so many agents don't. And then they're worried about writing things off. What I want you to understand is once you set up an LLC, you've got to realize you are a LLC. You are, it's basically a corporation, guys. You're no different than Pepsi. But sometimes we think we're different than them. No, that's what you are. You have the same rights that a company like that does. Are you taking advantage of them? Are you writing off your cars? Are you writing off your insurance, your expenses? Are you writing off your vacations? Now you say, well, how do I write off my vacations? Well, there's ways. So let me give you an example. My spouse is an officer in my corporation, in my LLC. We need to have planning meetings. Can we take a weekend? I mean, you've got friends that are in corporations. Do they go away for business reward meetings? How many have go away for a week because they had top sales awards and they pay for them to go to the Virgin Islands for a week? That's a write-off. You can do that for yourself in a small business. What about you go to a training? You go to a training in Cabo and you stay for an extra, it's a 3-day event, you stay for an extra 5 days. Well, if you want to be letter of the law, you could literally write off the trip there. You could write off most of it there. And if you want to stretch it, that's up to you. Could you have a business meeting with your spouse afterwards that you're doing your business planning for your quarterly reviews? Sure. So we got to start thinking about what these doing. So are you writing off your training and coaching? Are you writing off your lunches and dinners? How many times are you going to dinner with your friends and they talk about real estate? Every time. Did you write it off? Now understand a write-off is not a credit. So if you're in a 35% tax bracket and you spend $100 on lunch, on dinner, you're saving $35 of that. So the idea is, was I going to go out to dinner with my friends anyways? And we talked about it. And so we were planning on doing it anyway. So now it costs me 35% less to do it. That's pretty cool. If your vacations can be 35% less, that's pretty cool. So what gifts are you doing? What's your health insurance? Are you got your health insurance included? What about your phone and internet? What about your golfing? I write off most of my golfing because I'm usually talking about real estate. Can you write off your country club? Maybe. I'm not your tax guy. What about a uniform? How many hats do you have for your business? Everywhere I go, Rockwell's got a hat. Does he write those off? Sure. Is it marketing? Yes. But the truth is, he's got shirts that have his name on them that he wears all the time. Does he get to write that off? Boom. Where could you be doing that? What about paying your children? That's one for Gephardt, right? You could be paying Paige, right? And how do we get to write that up? Because if Paige is only getting $10,000 a year, she doesn't pay taxes. That extra money could be actually paying for her private school. Where are we not thinking about that? So just some ideas for us to really utilize, because the thing is with taxes, and the thing with so many of us is we want to brag about how much money we make. And for a lot of years, I was buying investment real estate and I was keeping it rather than showing up on my tax return. And it felt weird because I wasn't making that much money. But what I realized is, would I rather hold an asset that I just have $200,000 in equity rather than paying the tax on it? So the reality is we don't want to write things off for no good reason. People say, I just wrote everything off. Well, if you have no money left, it's stupid. but understand how to use it and calculate it. So maximizing, right? Strategies, contribute to your IRA accounts, right? Accelerate expenses. So if you know you're going to make a lot of money this year, and you've got good income and you've got cash, pay something for the whole year next year at the end of the year. There's certain types of trucks you can get that you can get a bigger write-off. Now, I'm not saying to go out and spend money that you shouldn't, but if it's money you were going to do anyways, understand that. Make sure you have the right accountant. And for most people, you're doing your taxes yourself. I question whether you're really being prudent, and that's unless you're making no money.
John, one of the things that you've got me thinking about here, though, is you hear kind of these easy, like bumper sticker level intelligence statements, like you've got to spend money to make money. And it's funny how differently that statement could be applied. In John's example earlier, John was spending money buying real estate so that he could create passive losses against earned income, but he also got income depreciation, equity appreciation, leverage. Like he got a lot of things off owning those properties. The other person might have been spending money. They might have been spending it on internet leads, right? That just creates a bigger hamster wheel the next year instead of creating permanence and wealth. And so it's fascinating how quickly these things could turn for you or against you if you're not getting really good wisdom. And that's why I'm glad everyone's here today, because there's a lot of clarity coming out of this call, I hope.
I hope so, guys. So let's talk about, I'm going to move a little bit away from business and talk about life mastery. And again, I'm not the encyclopedia on this. I've learned this from other people. I'm screwing it up all the time. I'm continuing to try to learn. But it happens over time, right? So one of the things I'm going to tell you guys is that some of us grew up and we got some roadblocks that are in our lives because of the things that happened in our past, or traumas that we have in our lives. And so I'm going to tell you, if you haven't dealt with those, that needs to be a priority. What counseling do you need to go get? What books do you need to read to deal with the traumas that have happened in your life? The way you're looking at the world that isn't accurate. Because once those get cleared out, life gets a lot easier. And it's not baggage we're carrying around. So as I'm talking to you about life mastery, I get it. There may be some things that you're dealing with that make this stuff really hard. But is it time to start dealing with it? Is it time to start getting going on it? Because once we clear those things out, life gets easier. And the other I'm going to tell you is that a lot of times we're carrying around baggage around things that we haven't done. For example, I'm just going to say I've got agents. Most agents are behind on their taxes. And if you would ask the top producers, more top producers are behind on their taxes than average producers. Many people are 4 and 5 years behind and haven't done their taxes. And what I'm going to tell you is it creates baggage. And it's always sitting in the back of your head and it's taking energy away. And so when it's either taking energy away from your business, it's taking energy away from your personal life, it's taking energy away from you being able to create a vision. So I'm going to ask you to write that list down. Is there personal development? Is there counseling you need to go to start dealing with some of the traumas from your past? Are there things that you need to deal with that you've been putting off and you think taxes that you haven't dealt with, or whatever that might be, right? I mean, I know for me, I just got my taxes done. I typically wait till the end of the year, but I tell you, it was so relieving once I got it done, knowing, oh, okay, that was less than what I owed. That's less than what I thought. That's great. The other thing I'm going to come back to is when we did those analysis of 35% taxes, are you taking 35% out of every check and putting it into a separate bank account? Because when you do that, you won't feel as wealthy. Many people just put all their money in one account and they just go to the end of the year and they see if they have enough left over. If you take 35% and they think they're doing great, if you take 35% out of every check and you can't touch it, you're going to feel a different kind of pressure, and see how that works for you. So what's the definition of insanity? doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I hear this from agents all the time. I've seen it from myself. I keep doing the same thing and wondering why nothing's changing. It only is an excuse, guys, for a little while. Then it's just insanity. So the next one is, my wife had a video for me on this, is, are you hungry or do you just want something to eat? So this was a coach, and I don't know how to get this video up and play it, so I'm stealing it and I'll just share it. You know, he says when he's looking for a football player that's coming in, what he wants is that kid that grew up in the streets that doesn't have anything, because that kid's hungry. He's going to do whatever it takes. He's not going to take no for an answer. He's going to run through a wall. He's going to figure out how to get what he wants. Versus if he takes a kid that grew up in a pretty soft family, he just wants to eat something. He knows it's over in on the cabinet. He just needs to go over and get it. And half the time they're too lazy to go get it for themselves. So the question is, are you hungry or do you just want something to eat? If you want to create the life of your dreams, you got to get hungry. You got to be willing to walk through a wall. You got to be willing to make hard decisions that may make your life uncomfortable for a while. They make your spouse not like you as much for a while. Right? If you guys are spending more than what you make, and it's, you got to talk to your spouse about that. That might create an uncomfortable situation. But is it going to get better if you don't? So the 6 inches between our ears is the most critical space in terms of creating the life of your dreams. What are you doing to work between here? It's how we think, how we visualize, how we get ourselves around people that think differently. Because when we get around people, most of the things I've learned, guys, it's because I've been around different people. I've spent really in the last 10, 12 years, 125,000 or more just on coaching. I can tell you the best money I spent was my wife and I when we got married. I remember getting through our honeymoon, and I told her she really needed to get counseling because she was really messing this thing up. Okay, that's how unevolved I was. And I'm still not that evolved if you ask her. Like, you really need to get counseling because you're not doing this right. Well, that didn't help a lot. But we went and got counseling 33 years ago. Do you know how uncomfortable that was? Counseling was not as common as back then as it is today. Today, it's more acceptable. Back then, you were kind of messed up. Like, you didn't want to tell your friends you went to a counselor. Almost today, it's like, oh, I went to a counselor, really working on stuff. But as a newlywed, we went to counseling. And I realized that I was the problem. Probably 80% of it. And I remember we're spending money on that. I'm like, $100 an hour back then, 35 years ago, that was a lot of money. But what I found was my wife quit going because she didn't need it as much as I did. And I kept going. And what I started learning was I started learning things that most guys didn't learn till they were 40. And I realized after a while that I'm getting ahead of the game. And so I kept spending a lot of money. And so I encourage each of you is like, and today we're married 33 years by the grace of God, this coming up. And been a lot of tough times through the years. But what I can tell you is I know lots of people that look like the first 6 years, everything was great. And they looked and smelled good on the outside. But we've left lots of them by the wayside because most of them weren't willing to do the work when it got tough. And in a marriage or in a business, there's always times it's going to get tough. And you want to do what it takes. Are you willing to humble yourself? Are you willing to go and ask for help from people when you don't know how to do it? I love that heart. I love that heart when somebody says, I don't know how to do it. Will you help me? I want to get better. Because I guess, tell you what, guys, people want to help you. People love helping. I love it when I get that call. How can I schedule some time? So Jim Rohn said, if you want to have real success, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Opportunity finds you when you have become the type of person that attracts it. I want to read that again. If you want to have real success, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Opportunity finds you when you become the type of person that attracts it. It's so true. When you start working on yourself, you start putting yourself around different situations. People start seeing that you're thinking differently and acting differently. All of a sudden, they want to be around you. All of a sudden, they want to learn from you. All of a sudden, you start seeing opportunities that you never saw before. If you keep saying that I could never afford to buy an investment property, I don't have enough money. Well, guess what? You never will. But if you start looking, I can tell you today, if you guys found an investment property that we could buy for 200 and it's worth 400 and you don't have any money, you can find somebody that will get in that deal and give you part of the equity. But most people are just never going to think they could do it. So how much have you spent on training and coaching over the last 10 years? What books have you read? So do you know your why? What are you looking to create in all areas of your life in the next quarter, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? This includes family, health, business, finances. Whoops, there's a misspelling, 2 misspellings. Development. What would be perfect? Have you created what perfect would be for you? Clarity of what you want to create or how you want to live is the first step. I want to share something that I wrote the other day for my children because it's a big deal for me. I was just, I've got kids that are 27, 24, and 20, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing. And I said, good morning. Finding a career job or what you want to do with your life seems random at times. One way to think about it is envision where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years in terms of your life, family, lifestyle, daily activities, and finances. What would be perfect? Then work backwards to design what it would take to make it happen. Don't limit yourself by what you do not know yet, or have the skills yet, or the resources that you may not think are available. Clarity of what we want to create or how we want to live is the first step. And I just said one of my drivers or goals when I was young was wanting to have a $10,000 a month passive income through rental properties by the time I was 60, which we've created a lot more than that now, thank the Lord. However, the mistake I should have focused on was how to do that in 5 or 10 years when I was young, and I believe I would have done it much quicker. Because the truth is that I never created urgency when I was young, but once we moved to Oregon in 2013, I was broke. And creating urgency became a big deal. And we were able to do that in 10 years. And I actually could have done it in 5 now, looking back. So resources and skills are never the real challenge. Resourcefulness. Hear that word, resourcefulness. How resourceful are you? Vision, commitment, and discipline are what are missing for most of us to create the life of our dreams. I want to read that last paragraph again. Resources and skills are never the real challenge. Resourcefulness, vision, commitment, and discipline are what most of us are missing to create the life of our dreams. Where can you be more resourceful? And I love this example. And it's a little extreme, but I'm gonna give you a couple. Have you ever heard this thing of like, what's the fastest way to get a woman with a baby over a wall? You throw the baby over the wall. And I can tell you, a mom will figure out how to get over that wall that's 10 feet high. She will knock that wall down. She will kill somebody. She will do whatever it takes to get over that wall. She will garner the resource, the discipline to get over that. Where do we need to do that with our goals and dreams? Think about that. How clear are what you want? How internalized have you put them? What lengths are you willing to do to get those versus just lip service? Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Because to get what you want in life, most of the time you're going to have to be uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable. Most things we want in life are on the other side of our fear. Where's your fear holding you back? Where's your fear holding me back? So we have it there again at the bottom. Are you hungry or you just want something to eat? So let's get into time management. Either you will control your calendar or it will control you. Either you will control your clients or they will control you. If you showed me your calendar, so if I looked at your calendar over the last 90 days, I can tell you whether you're making money, whether you're in shape, or how your family. Oh, I misspelled again. How your family. Jeff didn't proof my writing. Neither did AI. But the idea is, it rarely lies your calendar. I can show me your bank account, the last transactions you can do over the last 90 days, and I can tell you where your priorities are. So, what does your ideal day or week look like? Have you built your ideal week? I remember years ago when I was coaching with Joe Stump, he said, create your ideal week. And then start looking, how many days can you actually do that? And know that most of the time you're not going to do it. But if we start with ideal, then it's more likely we're going to create it. And then forgive yourself. Prioritize tasks based on urgency and impact rather than what other people are telling you to do or what's easiest. Adjust your schedule as it's needed. Structuring the ideal work week. And again, some of this may be like, oh, I already know this stuff, right? This isn't that big a deal. But are you actually doing it? Are you creating blocks in your calendar for non-negotiables? What are your non-negotiables? Prospecting? It better be a non-negotiable. Now, what does prospecting mean? That could mean a lot of different things. It could be your past clients. It could be your internet leads. It could be FSBOs. Are you prioritizing your lunches? If you're not going to lunch with or coffees with your clients or your past customers to get referrals, you're messing up. Client follow-up, family time. Are you blocking out time to be with your family? Are you working on your business? Prioritize daily to-do list. Are you putting your to-do list together, and then are you actually prioritizing what's actually going to have the most effect on your business? Implement weekly reviews to assess what you've done so you can pat yourself on the back and then also see where you're needed. The other is, guys, is that energy is a limited resource. Most people have the most energy in the morning, period. So when should you be doing the hardest things? In the morning when you have the most energy. So I'm going to do the question here. When should you schedule listing appointments, showings, closing inspections, and appraisals? Aaron, can you tell me when you should be scheduling those?
Yep.
So when should you be
In the
scheduling
morning.
listing appointments, showings, closings, inspections, and appraisals?
In the morning when you have energy to do stuff.
Actually opposite, brother. Thank you for answering.
No.
Should be the afternoon. Why? Listing appointments are easy to go to. Once you're there, you got energy because you're with your client and you've made a commitment that you have to be there. Showings are easy because you're with the client. You have energy. Showings, easy. Appraisal, inspections. Because we got to get the priorities done in the morning. What's our priorities? Prospecting, working on our business, doing our client follow-up. Because that's when we have energy. Energy is created when we're around other people, right? Like, think about it. It's easy to work out in the morning for most people. It's hard to work out in the evening because so many other things get in the way. So I'm going to tell you, most of the time you should be not, if you're going to closings, you tell people I only go to them afternoon. Because if you let your clients schedule your closings, they're going to do it in the middle of the morning when it's most inconvenient for you, and you're not going to get to the most important things on your business. Now we're going to go through, coming up, we're going to be on Core 90, we're going to do the anatomy of a deal. We're going to be talking about closings, inspections, appraisals. I'm going to tell you most of the time, if you're a little farther in the business, you shouldn't be going to any of those. But that's my opinion. But if you are going to them, schedule them when they're not going to affect the most priorities in your business. Morning routine. Do you have a morning routine? You've heard this before, but are you doing it? Because when you set your day up, so how you start your day will often control how your day ends. Think about that. So do you have a time that you get up every morning? Are you taking time to pray? Are you exercising? Reviewing your goals? Are you taking some time to read at that point? What about writing down 5 things you're grateful for? Affirmations. Make your bed. Have you read that book, Make Your Bed? Now, I have to be honest. My mother made me make my bed every day growing up, and I hated that. So one of the agreements with my wife when I got married is I don't have to make the bed. Okay? So, and she makes bed every day. Okay, now the other day I made the bed after 33 years of marriage, and I made the bed the other day, and she came in to me and says, "Oh, you made the bed." Like, I've probably made the bed 10 times in my married life. So what's your agreements, right? So decide what your agreements are. But what are you doing in the morning to set yourself up for success? What about evaluating your social media and TV? Whoops, something didn't show up on that one. So I'm going to tell you that most of us, social media and TV is getting in our way of what we want in our lives. How much is doom scrolling affecting you? It's so fun and it's so easy. But where are you finding in the middle of your day that you've got 10 minutes? So you're sitting at the doctor's office and you got 10 minutes. We can't actually control ourselves anymore. We can't have quietness. We have to be entertained all the time. What if you had a Kindle and instead of scrolling, you actually read a book for 10 minutes? Because you say, I don't have time to read. What if it kept your Kindle with you for books you wanted to read, and every time you had that 5-minute break, instead of scrolling and doom scrolling, you actually read something that was going to help your life? What about TV? Is one of the reasons I like going to bed early is because I find I just watch TV from 9 to 11 and there's really no value in my life. But if I go to bed at 9, I don't miss that TV and I actually get up at 5:30, and it's really hard to watch TV at 5:30 in the morning. You just don't turn on your favorite show for some reason. So things get done. I would encourage you, if you think that this is a challenge for you, to actually log your TV and social media time for a week. Every time you do social media, now I'm not saying you shouldn't use social media for business, but the question is, do you time block it? Do you say, I'm going to go in and for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to go through and see the people, I'm going to make a post, and I'm going to go in and like the posts that I need to like to help my business grow. And if you've got some family and you want to check it out, do that. But where is an hour or two going every day that you could have done that for reading something or growing? Where is TV wasting what you could have done? So building discipline. We've talked about all these different things, guys. Discipline is the key to all of it. And understanding your priorities and getting clarity. Discipline is hard. It's a muscle. And sometimes we have to jumpstart that muscle because we all get lazy. But what I can tell you is discipline starts one thing at a time. What's the one thing you could do today that once you could do it every day, that it starts becoming a habit? There's somebody on this call that works out 7 days a week, I'm sure. They don't even think about it anymore because it's a habit. It's a habit. It's something they don't even have to think about. There's somebody on this call that has figured out how to prospect every day. They don't think about it anymore. It'll still be a struggle, but they have the discipline to do it. And after they've done it a certain amount of times, it gets easier. Where do you have to start creating more discipline? It starts with baby steps. Long-term growth through consistency. In most cases, our lack of discipline is what is keeping us from our dreams. Consistency in actions leads to cumulative results over time, fostering growth. We often think that we want everything tomorrow. But here's what Tony Robbins says. We typically overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years with consistent effort. Where is that showing up? Is it better to go out? Think about this. Okay, I need to work out 20 hours. Is it, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and work out 20 hours straight. And then I don't have to work out for the next 3 weeks. Is that going to have the same results as if I worked out 30 minutes every day? And how many days would it take to get 20 hours? A month. Which is going to have better results? 20 hours in 1 day or 30 minutes every day for 30 days? 30 days, guys. It's not huge actions. It's small actions every single day. It's steady improvements. Commitment, consistent results build the foundation that transform our business and our personal. And then reflecting regularly on that to see where we're at, where we're missing, where we're going, and then coming back to the perspective that, how am I doing? Let's get a clarity on how we're doing. That's one of the beauties of having coaches or having accountability partners, is we get clarity around what we're doing. We have somebody else giving us some feedback that's honest, hopefully. And then we take that and we don't beat ourselves up. We take it as, great, I've done, this is how much I've done, where can I go next? And that really comes back to that beginning story, right? The truth was the girl had flunked her classes. She hadn't made a lot of all those other bad decisions she could have made. Well, okay. Her life could have been a lot worse. It is what it is. She has a place to start. And I think I'm ready to wrap up, which is about done. And so I hope this has helped, guys. If anybody has any questions, and I really didn't take a lot of questions here, I've just been rambling. Hopefully I've brought some impact for you. Hopefully I've encouraged you to believe that you're enough. You know, and as we look at that, guys, is to realize that, let me just pull this over. The people that have achieved so much are not any different than you. I look at people that I look at where I'd like to go in life, and I realize they're not different than me. They put their pants on the same way. And that was hard for me when I was younger. I kept thinking, man, they're so much better than me. They got some secret. And certainly some of them may have gotten some more skills with the way they grew up. You know, I didn't grow up with money. We're very poor, you know, very lower middle class. I've been working since I was a little kid. And so I struggled to figure out how to make money. I had struggled to figure out I remember I didn't do $1 million deals because I didn't think I was worthy. And then I started doing a lot of deals and I moved into those neighborhoods and I realized those friends of mine are just as dumb as I am. They just had a different vision for themselves and what they thought they were capable of. How much more capable are you than what you think you are? How much more can you add to your day, to your life? What little disciplines do you need to add that could have a huge impact on you and your family? And trust me, you're not that far away. What work do you need to do on yourself personally that's getting in the way? What baggage? Get it dealt with. Don't let another 10 years go by to have the life of your dreams. But I'm honored to be here. Any questions or any comments or anything that we can wrap up with? No?
That was really good, John. Thanks for pouring yourself out and just praying that you get all poured back into today and be blessed for blessing us.
Thanks, Joanne. I love you guys, right? As we're doing this and just, I want us this next year, guys, I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be easier, most likely, from a real estate perspective. There's not going to be anybody coming to save you, right? There's not going to be a magic bullet. However, there's always winners in every market, no matter what the conditions are. You just have to decide you're going to be one of those. And you have everything you need. And what you don't, it's there. Just got to go grab it. Become resourceful. What do we need to go get? Jeff, you want to wrap up?
Absolutely. That was incredible, John. Thank you so much. And I just have to say, I hope that you guys will share this. We'll share the recording afterward, obviously, like we always do. And you can access that in the communitycenter.com and go check it out. But also share the video when you get the public version. Share that with your friends and see if you can bless another life. You know, ultimately, the reason that we're doing what we're doing is to try to help agents live a better life and to end up not just repeating the same mistakes over and over. And as John said, definition of insanity. So thank you for being here, John. Incredible, absolutely awesome content today, as always. And thank you, everyone, for listening and for sharing afterward. We'll see ourselves out with some music. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.